Today is Wednesday, May 18th, 2011. I'm Matthew T.G.
I'm Steve Stanley.
I'm Heath Mulligan.
And I'm Tony Casey. Welcome to the Techology Show, a weekly podcast featuring technology, theology, and everything in between. The world's only user-antagonistic podcast. This is episode 108.
Actually, this is normally when the studio audience applauds. And
Yes, we have a studio audience of one today. So if you hear that random applause, then you'll know what that's about. We want to welcome Aaron Gatsby to the show this morning. Word salad. This morning, Aaron is working on his Master of Divinity at Wesley Biblical Seminary. He currently serves as an assistant pastor at Greenville First Wesleyan Church in Greenville, South Carolina. He also chairs the Morals and Social Concerns Committee of the South Carolina District of the Wesleyan Church. Aaron and his wife, Casey, have been married for 12 years. Together they have two daughters, Cynthia and Eliana. And next week, May the 27th, is the due date for their third child.
Lucy.
Lucy. Oh, we already have a name.
Yes,
Lucy
we do.
Jean, yep.
All
Lucy
right.
Jean.
Lucy.
Yep.
Aaron, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
All right.
Yes,
sir. Hey, did you just break some copyright thing here?
I don't know if
hear from
the
the lawyer.
federal regulations against broadcasting certain types of things apply to us. But
Yeah.
if they do, I'm sure that's covered.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not. So, listen, it's not in the show notes, but this morning I'm getting ready for this show, and I get this email from you, Steve, and it seems that we have a Catholic parishioner down in Florida.
Big trouble.
Big
trouble.
Big trouble.
All the trouble you can buy for $10.
Okay. So what did this parishioner do?
Well, this parishioner, and by the way, I like the setup for this. It is, in this particular Catholic church, it is $10 per prayer request. If you want your prayer request published in the bulletin,
Hey,
$10.
oh, hey, Heath, make a note of that. We
am.
have a fundraiser.
That's right. That's right. We're taking prayer requests here at the Techology Show.
That's right.
And anyhow, his prayer request was, since in Catholic theology, they don't believe that death cuts off a person's chance of accessing grace. In other words, they think you can be saved after death, even if you are a rascal in life. He requested that people pray for the soul of Osama bin Laden, that he would find God's grace and forgiveness and mercy. Now, I really resonate with his heart. I think every Christian does. You have to. God is all about forgiveness, grace, and mercy. I disagree with his theology. But what happened in the church was, since they believe that it's possible to do this, you have all kinds of people who are saying, "No, don't pray for him. Let him rot in you know where." And it's caused quite a problem for the parish priest.
Yeah. Well, the priest could point out that we're not saying how you have to pray for him.
Now, listen, let me just say, if you do send us $10 for your prayer request, you are going to get this prayer cloth
By bounty.
that has been anointed with the sweat of every host
Hey,
of
listen,
this show.
wait, I had a sausage, egg, and cheese biscuit and wiped the corners of my mouth.
And better than that,
There it went.
the image of the Virgin Mary appeared on your biscuit.
Oh, no. No.
Well, that's today's broadcast. Thank you for joining us on the
Glad you could all be here for our final broadcast.
Also in the sports world, I take a chance by bringing this up because if you're not a sports fan, you're just not going to be familiar with the name. But a guy by the name of Killebrew died yesterday. He was a longtime Minnesota Twins player and retired, Heath, the early 70s, probably 73, 74.
Right.
Over 500 home runs. The reason I bring him up is because he was truly one of the good guys.
Yep.
He wasn't a huge player, but for the day he was big. I mean, he was 5'11", but he was pretty thick, and it was before the days of steroids.
Right.
And when he retired, he was like third or fourth on the home run list. Now you have a whole bunch of people that have passed him, but the whole steroids era caused that. And so I don't just applaud him because he did it the right way, but he was a guy who truly he wouldn't argue with refs, and he was complimentary to refs. One ref said that Killebrew earned every home run he ever got. He never got anything from the umps, and Players loved him,
Yeah.
and I mean, he really is going to be a guy on the sports scene in baseball. It's going to be missed.
This, it's one of those rare guys that you cannot find anybody to say anything bad about him. He never had any kind of scandal, and so, like you said, one of the good guys, did it the right way, and just really, I think, known for two things. Number one is his power hitting, and then just who he was as a person.
Yeah, but his arm strength. Tell the story you were telling me earlier.
Oh yeah, when I was first computer I got going into college, I actually went. I knew we were getting the computer. I actually went and bought Tony La Russa baseball for the IBM. Loved that game. Played that game so much. But I would do a draft where you draft all the players from all time. And every time, I loved drafting Harmon Killebrew because he was a great power hitter. But as far as defense, his range and his arm strength were only like a 5. So I'd always have to draft Harmon Killebrew and I'd always have to draft another third baseman. So I don't know in real life if his defense was any good. I just know in Tony La Russa baseball for the IBM, I had to DH him. I'm sorry. I had to get somebody else to play third.
Him, yep. All right, well, let's jump into our subject matter for the day. As we said earlier, Aaron Gatsby is here, and he's our guest today, and primarily here because he chairs the Morals and Social Concerns Committee for the South Carolina District of the Wesleyan Church, and chairing that committee, he has kind of guided that committee to the place where we are going to be doing a roundtable on immigration. And so, the question here, Aaron, why? Why do you feel the need for the district to address this issue?
First, I think in this debate nationally, a lot of times we lose sight of the fact that we're dealing with families and people who have come to this country to make make life better, to provide for their families, and to give more opportunities for their children. And when we lose sight of that, then we just make things black and white. And issues such as this, when you're dealing with people and their lives, and it goes much deeper than that on a national level. Then, as Christians, we're called to view people as Christ would view people. So the issue of their persons and who they are as people should change how the church and how those who take the name of Christ approach this issue. It should never be in our churches where someone's status as illegal or legal influences how we view them as people. And too often, I'm afraid that because of our politics, it changes how we view people.
Right.
And for Christians, that should not be. So as we look into it, we want that roundtable discussion. We'll be looking at, the whole breadth of Scripture, and then trying to get it to a place where how then should we look at current legislation proposals, and how should we speak up about the national debate. And also, one of the Daisy Rodriguez, she'll be covering, what about those who have come here and they've grown up American, but they're strangers in this country, and they're treated as such. And so that's issues that we all need to wrestle with.
There's a lot of things we can jump into here. Let's first begin about start on a subject you brought up, in that you said one of the reasons you want to do this roundtable is so that we stop looking at this issue just as a black and white issue. And I think that it is fair to say that in many of the circles we frequent, there are those who say that this is very simple. You have immigrants who are here illegally. They're undocumented. They just need to go home.
Right.
So, and part of what we're doing today is we don't argue that fact. They are here illegally. They are here. They're not undocumented, or they are undocumented. Now, having said that, let's also acknowledge in the history of this country that Ellis Island was full of people who were undocumented.
Right.
As a matter of fact, one of the largest group of undocumented immigrants in the history of the United States were Irish Americans, or are Irish Americans. So one of the things I've tried to do is trace our family history. We were one time Casey.
Oh, brother.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
boy.
so this is where we are so far, and we've kind of hit this snag down in the state of Missouri because we came out of Missouri, Arkansas, right along the state line there. But we were either part of the migration from Ellis Island to Missouri or Ellis Island, Ohio, Missouri. And in all likelihood, we're here because of either the persecution or the Catholic Protestant battles that were going on or the potato plight. The point is this, that if I get dogmatic about the undocumented aspect of this thing, all of a sudden it raises questions about my own heritage here. One of my favorite political cartoons of all time is it shows Native Americans on the shore, the eastern shoreline of America. The Mayflower is pulling up, and one Native American looks to the other and says, I sure hope they have their green cards. So every person that, initially, every person that ever came here was undocumented.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so you raise questions. The question is this: what is the heritage of America? What is it about? We call it the American melting pot. This isn't the first time in our country's history that we have issues with undocumented workers. So I think that you have to that's got to be in the mix, and it's got to be a talking point.
It does, and then also, in our generation, our government has failed to come up with immigration policy. They just talk about it.
Right.
And so they haven't done anything for at least a generation, any significant thing to try to fix the problem. They've, in a sense, turned a blind eye, allowed this problem to get to where it is, and they still refuse to have an honest and open discussion about where national immigration policy wants to go. And so it gets back to the issue, how do we view people who have come here to have a better life when they've been able to do so because we have, as a government, turned a blind eye and said, please come, please come.
Right. Well, isn't the whole, one of the things about Ellis Island is when people were immigrating into the United States is there was a clear path, where to go. When you got to Ellis Island, they told you what you needed to do.
Sure.
You went on your way.
Yeah.
And so we don't have that now. We don't have a clear and easy path to citizenship or being documented. We have made it such a convoluted mess. Yeah. We have created such a bureaucracy that it's literally easier for people to risk their lives. I mean, my whole thing on immigration is, it just needs to be, if I'm in another country and it's easier for me to sneak in illegally and risk my life than to just go through the proper steps, something's wrong. And here's the thing. The United States, of all, I don't even know the word I'm trying to think of all modern countries, we have the worst immigration record. We have the worst system. I mean, other countries are much more harsh, but also have better ways for people to become citizens and become documented.
Well, there would be those, to push back, Heath, there would be those that say, well, the path for citizenship in the United States is well known. It's well documented. I think it goes back to the point Aaron raises, and that's this, that there really has been, for a generation, literally, I mean, he doesn't exaggerate. Easily, you can say for 25 years now, there has been a stance in this country politically where it's easy to make political hay on the immigration issue, but literally nothing has been done about it. And even in the state of South Carolina, I will go out on a limb and say this, that every so often you see a bust at a company where they send undocumented workers back, but they could do that every day of the week here. They don't do it. They do it to kind of pacify people but not as a matter of practice. And there is no comprehensive plan along the border. I mean, there's so much that has to come in on this issue. And my frustration is this, that when when the government doesn't have a comprehensive plan, where does that leave the church? I think the church is different than the government. And that's where I want to go with the issue.
That's where we have to draw out the several strands of this. There is a legal issue that ought to be in the hands of the government. They are not addressing it currently.
Right.
There are great dangers to unprotected borders. We're witnessing some of that along the Texas border as we speak. And it's not just in the immediate crimes and murders that are committed there, but there are indications that foreign operatives from countries that wish us ill are working here and entering through those borders. So there's the legal issue, and that does have to be addressed. It does need to be taken care of in a way that doesn't objectify the stranger, but sees them as a whole person. But the church's response, this is where my heartbreak has been, because we have so politicized the church that our response has often been whatever our political party's response has been. And we don't see the immediate command of Christ that we are to extend hospitality in the form of shelter and food and the gospel above all else to these countries. Some of us have a greater opportunity to do missions work today than our parents and grandparents ever dreamed, or the missionaries in their day ever dreamed, because we now have so many foreign nationals here that we could reach with the gospel if we were willing to extend it with a friendly face and a loving heart, just as God does. Let the officials sort out the legal part, even be involved in that if need be, and if we ought as citizens. But our first and primary effort ought to be directed at seeing them the way God sees them, as creatures created in His own image and likeness, and our part in helping to ensure that their existence on this earth is as wholesome and safe and healthy as possible.
Two things I want us to grab here. First, Steve, I'm going to come back to you because I want you to talk a little bit about this whole thing of church as sanctuary, and then I'm going to come back to you, Aaron, and I want you to just expound a little bit more on this whole issue of second generation undocumented. So come back to you, Steve, this whole idea of the church as sanctuary, because I think it's lost in our day and age.
Well, first of all, under the Mosaic Law, there were cities of refuge, as they were called. And cities of refuge were cities to which people accused of crime or even guilty of crime could flee. Now, in essence, they became somewhat like penal colonies, where you were choosing to affiliate yourself with other people who were accused of crimes, rightly or wrongly. As long as you were in that city, you were safe. If you couldn't make it to a city, part of the judicial system was that if you grabbed hold of the horns of an altar, the horns were the little points at the corners to which the living sacrifice, as it was dying, was tied so that it wouldn't come off the altar. If you grabbed hold of the horns of the altar, you could plead your case there, and no one could harm you. This seems to be, according to anthropological study and survey, this seems to be a fairly consistent thing around the world in every culture. They found it even back in the Stone Age peoples of Papua New Guinea. Coming forward, the Visigoths in Spain were the first to codify into law after the collapse of the Roman Empire this concept that a church, a Christian church, could not be violated by secular authorities. Once you came to the precincts, the grounds of the church, they were sacrosanct because, in their view, the church was an embassy of the kingdom of the Lord Jesus Christ. And just as we wouldn't go barging into a Russian embassy today, they wouldn't be intruding into Christ's kingdom either. They accorded it that kind of respect. Under Rome, before the Visigoths, pagan temples were also sacrosanct. You couldn't violate their precincts to arrest somebody without the permission of the priests. Well, then coming forward, you've had this same general thought all the way down through the American Revolution. One of the reasons why churches are not taxed, though most people have lost any concept of why that's so. It's like we don't know what the appendix does, anymore in our bodies, but it does something, and we'll discover it again someday, no doubt. But why don't we tax churches? Well, if you go all the way back to the beginning of the founding of our country, it was the same principle. That is an embassy of the kingdom of the Lord Jesus Christ. You cannot tax another government.
We've lost that.
And we're about to lose the whole thing because there are many Christians that say, yeah, go ahead and tax the churches. And they don't understand that it's not just taxation. Justice Jay, the first Supreme Court justice in our nation's history, said that the power to tax is the power to control, and the power to control is the power to destroy. He said this in deciding that two states of equal standing could not tax each other. If you could tax that other state, you could literally deplete their resources and put them out of existence. It was, without sending an army in, a way to devastate them. So this acknowledgement was extended to the church. You represent Christ. His kingdom's not of this world, yet your kingdom is represented in this world, and we give you that privilege. So sanctuary, even today in Louisiana, which was predominantly Roman Catholic, and they carried this forward more completely than did Protestants many times, there are certain dynamics of the theory of sanctuary.
Yeah.
That's what it was called. That's why our assembly places in our churches, you may hear your pastor refer to them as come into the sanctuary. Well, that's where it got its concept from.
Yeah.
And coming there puts you in a different category, in a different place legally in the eyes of the country. Now, that's no longer true. Don't commit a crime. Don't rip off your granny and then run to the church, because the cops in America anymore are going to about follow you right in. But if this concept were enforced and explained, then you would have a different view of the church in its role as ministering to the strangers.
Well, and then also the kingdom of God, if it's an embassy of the kingdom of God, that all automatically says, wait a minute, our marching orders don't come from a political party.
Right.
They come from Christ and Scripture.
Right.
Which then gets us back to the focus on people. When the church is the embassy, then our decisions on even such things as, and maybe I'll step out on a limb here, as ordaining someone who is, it may be or may not be illegal, some of those decisions now in this country may be based on, we don't want to get, they're here illegally. But for the church, we're dealing with people, and that we just have lost that. So as we look at, are we going to lose our tax exempt status?
Look at the litigious.
Can we get? Are we going to get? And are we
Yes.
going to lose tax exempt if we do this? Well, something's wrong with that thinking when we default there.
You're right.
And this issue of immigration kind of begins to bring that to light. How far we have moved away from the church as the embassy, where when someone comes in, their legal status doesn't matter anymore, because if they're Christian, then they're in Christ like us, and they're part of the family of God.
Didn't Jesus say something about, I was a stranger and you took me in?
Yeah.
I think he said something about that.
I believe so.
I think there is it's not the church's job to make sure someone is documented and legal. I think it's the church's job to minister to people, help them do the proper and right and legal thing. But our first priority is to minister to the needs of the family, minister to the needs. I mean, if somebody, we have a benevolence fund. Let's say an illegal immigrant family comes, they don't have any food in their house. Well, I'm going to need to see some documents before we help your family,
Well,
Well,
now don't laugh,
the
because if you pick them up, since this law was passed that went into effect in South Carolina at the turn of this year, if you pick up an illegal alien and you have them in your car for any purpose but emergency health care, you've committed a crime.
But now, and what does that say about the mandate of Scripture and the way they were we are to treat the
It's
alien,
a law we
the
must
alien
disobey.
among
Right.
us.
Yes,
It's a law we
that's
must
what I was
disobey.
waiting for you to say, Steve.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, there's a good question being asked in the chat room, though, that takes it a little bit further with the idea of something illegal. What if the sanctuary is a harbor place for that? What do we do with other kind of illegal people or people who are breaking a law? The question was asked to. They're trying to play devil's advocate to put it really extremely
Well,
here.
that may
But
take
what do you
us
do with
wider.
it? What do you?
That may take us wider than our focus today, but
Wait,
the essence,
can I finish the question? What do you do if a child molester comes in? Do you give them sanctuary and harbor?
But it's informed by the word. So you have this clear testimony of Scripture, starting in the Old Testament with Israel's treatment of the aliens among them, and so. Here we're not talking about sin in terms of, so if you bring up the idea of pedophilia, now we don't have a scriptural precedent which talks about our need to protect them. The issue is this, with the issue of the alien, we have a scriptural precedent. And
but even with a child molester, that you would feed the person if they were hungry. We're not talking about getting between them.
Yeah,
and
I agree. I'm not saying that I agree with what's being said here. It's just
but
somebody's trying to play
wider. That
Sure.
takes us wider than our focus today, and if you go wider, you get into issues that you can't resolve today, which we've got enough of those, I suppose, to deal with.
All right, let's talk about get back to the human aspect that Aaron brought up. So, Aaron, let's go now into this issue of second generation, undocumented.
Right. I mean, that's one of the things that frustrates me, and a lot of times in this whole debate is where's the focus on the family when someone gets, perhaps maybe a parent gets arrested, they're illegal, they're going to send them home, but their kids stay here. That's part of that second generation. We're not necessarily in our focus on the family that conservative Christians are sometimes so known for advocating. Where are they advocating for the illegal immigrants, keeping those families together and keeping the family intact for those folks that are here? And then taking that a step further, what about those children who are 18? Maybe they came when they're 1 year old, 2 years old. They've grown up. They're as American as my kids.
Yeah.
And they're growing up. This is their home. This is their culture. This is where they're from.
Right.
And when you
And
some
they
of
were
those
never
that
asked. They were never asked whether.
No,
they
and I'm
wanted-
not held accountable. Thankfully, or none of us, we're not necessarily judged by what our parents did. We can, the choices they made, they do influence us, and they influence us, but we're not necessarily, oh, well, he did this, he's just, and they're denied access to a driver's license. So as they're coming up in high school, when they turn 16, and all their friends, all their other kids they can't. And my frustration is there's not an easy way. There's not a way for them if they finish high school, they get a diploma. There's not a way for them to have access to citizenship. We treat that they can just go home. Well, this is home. They don't have a home
to send them
That's
back. To send them back south of the border is to send them to a land and a people they do not know. They are American. And what we're finding out in the church especially is while there's been this great emphasis on planting Hispanic churches, this is what we have discovered. Now that you have a generation that have been raised here, they leave the Hispanic church, they go to the Anglo church where English is spoken because that's who they identify with.
If you were to send them back, they would be a target in those communities. They would not be welcomed or
because
treated
they're
the
not
same.
them.
That's right.
They're American.
They're perceived to be as American as you and I, with this added baggage that your people went there and they got to enjoy all of that while we've been stuck here. And it's just not fair. It's not right. It's not fair.
I know of a young man who is 22 years old right now. He was brought to this country when he was 4 or 5, and he is still undocumented. Now, no one asked him. His parents didn't set him down and say, we want to poll you kids and see if you all want to go to America. So you can talk about his parents making a decision and them breaking the law by coming here, and okay, that is an issue out there. But with second generation undocumented, no one asked them. They were raised here. They're as American can be. My question is this. So how does the church respond to that in the light of the gospel?
I think, one, we have to start advocating governmentally or politically for an immigration policy that deals with that issue, because some of those families, their younger brothers and sisters are documented, and you're creating animosity towards America. You could almost argue it's a national security thing. There's a generation of second-generation undocumented children out there that are being treated by this country in a way that would make them despise it.
I hadn't even thought about that.
See, and why would we not want to have a policy to where they had access to it?
Another thing that's being kicked around in the chat room, something that I've contemplated before and thought a lot about, is this concept of trying to figure all this out. Well, what do you do with government programs and who gets what and stuff like that? And I think it just speaks to the failure. Again, we've been talking about the failure of the church, but should it have been the government's job to sort it all out and to figure it all out? We've put it in their hands because I mean, you just go back. We don't know what to do. The church has lost our ability to know what to do, to how to handle things. And so when you're talking about food stamps and whatever it may be to help people, why is that even coming through government programs and not the church to begin with?
Let me tell you, the fundamental problem in our country right now, you think about when our country was founded, you had great men who saw a disservice being done. Taxation was that representation. What did they do? Did they sit around? Did John Adams just sit around and was like, well, somebody ought to do something? Did George Washington say, somebody do something? They said, no, we got to do something. The fundamental problem in our country and in the church is we've all just sat around, immigration problem. Somebody will fix it. Somebody will do something. Yeah. They'll fix welfare. They'll fix this. They'll fix that. We've just sat around and waited. And the church, while we've sat around and waited for the government to solve the problems the church should have been dealing with for the past 50 years.
We've relinquished our right or our responsibility or our voice by taking our hands off and saying somebody else will figure it out.
It is not the government's responsibility to take care of people. It is the church's responsibility to take care of people, to minister to them through the gospel, to feed them, to clothe them. That is what we're called to do. The government build us some roads, protect us, have a law. Laws are supposed to protect us. We have, oh my goodness, would anyone disagree that this is the most convoluted mess? But as Americans, we have this arrogance that you look at all the great empires throughout history. They have all come and gone. And to think that if we do nothing and we allow things to keep going like they're going, and I know I'm getting off topic here, but to allow things to keep going like they're going, we're headed for a mess, This whole debt limit and whatever,
Where this intersects the immigrant among us, illegal immigrant among us, is the fact that we have to start with first things first. We're not given an exception clause when Jesus says, feed them, clothe them, visit them in prison, and when they're sick, take care of them. He didn't say, if they're legal. He just simply said, if they're needy, do this. And the way we treat the stranger, he said, remember, you yourselves were strangers once. And he was saying that to the Israelites, but we could apply that to our own situation. I have Indian blood in me, but I'm not an Indian, a Native American. And my people came here from a foreign country, and if I were to be somehow, let's just cast a fantasy that the Indians are able to capture Washington again, and Congress and the White House and the Supreme Court, and they decide to ship all the children back. My parents never, whoever of us came over, never had the green card,
right,
or the papers.
That's the point. That's the point I was making earlier. Also, as Matthew raised this issue of illegal immigrants who are taking advantage of the welfare system. Now, don't then think that they're not paying into that system. I promise you that they're paying taxes, and this is part of the dirty little secret. And so one or two things are happening. I mean, they've got papers.
Yeah,
they're not the right papers, but they've got them. They're forged. and they're paying taxes. So you have one or two.
Well, hit that, because a lot of the things that you hear when you talk to people is, well, they're not paying taxes.
Yeah.
They've got even if they have a fake green card, they're paying Social Security. It's going somewhere into the government.
That's my point. So, and for the local employer is either not sending those tax dollars on, so they're keeping it, or they're just, in many cases, they're just sending it on to the government, and the government doesn't have to pay it out the back end.
Can I just lay a charge out here that I will be welcome, anyone's welcome to disprove? That the illegal immigrant population among us is the new slavery, only it's much worse than original slavery. And let me say why. With original American slavery, a man had to lay out hard cash to buy the slave. He had to take care of him, had to house him, and that was his property. Like you take care of your car or anything else, you wanted to get the most out of it that you could. Were there abuses of that? Yes, obviously. Sadly, tragically, there were abuses. But in the main, a person was obligated to take care of, to feed, because they couldn't work the fields if they were weak and sickly and malnourished. In this system, if the guy drops dead digging a ditch because he hasn't had fresh water, there's 10 more standing back here in the shadows waiting to be hired on. You have no responsibility to him. You don't lay out any cash for him except what he has worked for, and then you're paying him a pittance compared to what you would pay anybody else to do the work. And they are treated, and we permit this. The church that was so opposed to slavery, boy, don't get me on my soapbox.
Here we go.
Permit this and turn a blind eye.
Bless him, Lord, bless him.
And anytime somebody gets up and starts talking about the criminals among the illegal aliens and so forth, we've got them in our own culture.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to have that as long as there's human nature. But what are we to do for these who are here? We must minister to them. The gospel must be preached to all nations, regardless of where you find them. And we then are commanded by Christ, as Heath was making the point, to feed them, to clothe them, and take care
Many
of them.
criminals were vetted through Ellis Island. They changed their names.
Australia was primarily a penal colony. If you
was.
ran into trouble in England, they ship you to Australia.
Yeah. All right, listen, the reason we brought this up today, the reason we had Aaron in was just so that here's what we hope to do today.
Start a fight. And from the chat room, it looks like we've succeeded.
We wanted to come up with all the answers today.
No, yeah, that's exactly what we wanted to do, Heath. No, what we wanted to do is to raise this issue and suggest that just maybe this issue is way more complicated than the way the church has been treating it, or that many of our churches have been treating it. I'm going to shift gears just big time here, okay?
Grinding gears.
Big time. We're off the immigration topic. Last week, I had to go to an event called Boost, where where we're coaching churches and pastors, and I didn't know that Heath had to be at the same thing. So both of us drive separately to Raleigh, North Carolina. It's crazy, but I want you to see. I want you guys to see the vehicle that Heath is driving to this event. He drove it from South. He rented this thing, and listen real close. The audio of him right at the end of this thing. Okay.
This is a model of excess. Here we go.
Might really have to crank.
Is that our Heath?
That's it. See,
Is that a Hummer?
listen.
I think what we have going on here is a drug deal. He just got his stuff.
Look at that drive.
This is what you can drive when you pastor at Oakway Wesleyan Church.
It takes me about 10 minutes to get up in the car.
Lest you think we're kidding, Heath is really driving this vehicle.
He's hot-wired it. I thought that was the alarm.
This is for real.
Now, see, I didn't know he's going to stop and roll down his window, so it'll take me a second to catch up with him here, but this is good. That's how I roll. So now explain like the kingdom of God and the money that's being used here, Heath, and the whole Hummer thing.
That thing is loaded with 285 illegal aliens.
So, first of all, thanks to Samar for saying I'm so tiny. I really do appreciate that in the chat room.
This is our budget at work, right?
Yeah,
USF that we pay in the Wesleyan Church.
Well, what happened is I didn't know Tony was going. We had a few people from our church that was going to go, so one of them was going to drive. That fell through, and I just sold my car recently. I was going to drive my grandfather's car, and that just was not going to happen. So I called Enterprise in Seneca, rented the smallest thing they had. And then we see
that in the video.
So I get over there, and the guy, and we pull up, and I see the Hummer, and I look at Karen, my wife, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm getting the Hummer." She's like, "No." So the guy says, "Well, listen, these are your choices. You can get the H3 or a minivan." And I said, "Well, what's the price?" He said, "Same price you were quoted for the small car." I'm like, "Well, what gets better gas mileage?" And he was like, "Well, the Hummer actually gets a little bit better gas mileage than the." And I'm like, because it's the
He
H3.
got you, boy.
So I'm like, all right. The cool thing was I did the deal to where you pay for your gas up front, and because their price was 30 cents cheaper, so I actually saved money on gas by renting the Hummer.
You heard it here first.
I mean, so the comment is that Heath looks so small next to this vehicle. Next time, and you said you tried to get the smallest car, but next time get a Mazda Miata. Let's see Tony record that. Heath would look like a giant. Walk up to the car.
All right, well,
and it was amazing. I couldn't take it back until Monday because the place is closed. So people are coming to church Sunday. And I'm like, I just want to say we did not buy a Hummer. And people are like, we were wondering whose car that was. We're like, wouldn't our pastor get a Hummer? I said, if you ever see me buy a Hummer, it means I'm completely out of debt, that I've set aside money for all three of my kids to get married and go to college, and I paid cash for this Hummer. So if you ever do see a Hummer, it's a joyous, joyous day.
Hey, is anybody even making Hummers anymore? Aren't they?
No.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
But that's my dream car, and I can finally say I got to drive one. And let me tell you, after driving one, I want one even more.
all right. Well,
please.
Thank you for the.
Would Jesus drive a Hummer?
I'm going to try to move the show along now.
Yes.
It's time for.
Oh, wrong button.
Wrong button.
Download of the week.
Was that a fail or an epic fail?
That's just a minor fail.
Operation Burn.
All right. This week's download of the week has to do with Windows Live Family Safety 2011. So this is part of the Windows Live security software that you can get. I'm going to tell you how it works. I've watched it work. Michael Bryant, a friend of mine, has set this up in his home. You can register every computer in your house. One of your computers is what's called an administrative computer. So he has both of his daughters' computers registered. And this is all web-based, so he gets an interface that's web-based. It has his daughter's computers tied to this. What are you doing over there? TG's over here pouring
If he flushes.
yeah, don't flush during the broadcast.
Hey, nobody hered that until you brought it up. That's what the beauty of these
I can't
microphones
wait.
right here.
I can't wait to go back and hear this because I guarantee in the background you're going to
No.
Anyway, it pulls up this interface. He can control his daughter's computers in terms of where they go on the internet. I mean, and he can get very minute with this. In other words, every website they go to could be vetted by him. What he has right now are general restrictions, and if they want to go to a particular website and it's blocked, they can send a request to him, the administrator, to allow that website, and so then he can go in, give permission, and now his daughters can get on that. But it's something that I do here at our house, but I do it because of Matthew's expertise, and you know, he told me the router to buy, and we have changed the operating system on it to something called a tomato router, and so I can go in and do that. But Microsoft, and this is only Microsoft, it's not Mac or Linux or anything like that, but with their live system, you can do this, and if you're anything like me, I want, like Nicole, she's 13 today, by the way.
Happy birthday, Nicole.
I want her to be able to access the internet,
Yeah.
but I want to know where she's going.
So, well, what about my system? Here's something that has me concerned. Most things go through our wireless router, but then we also have Ethernet. And I notice that I'm not, when I go in to look at Tomato, it's not showing me computers that are on the Ethernet.
Yeah, it is.
It
No.
should.
Yes,
Every
it is. It
computer.
does.
I'm just telling you, it's
you
not.
may have
Mine
it set
does.
up to only show wireless clients or something like that, but it does. They're in there. So the problems that I see with this, I mean, just the immediate initial problems is, first of all, yes, it is just a one platform kind of deal. So by having this software on the computer and not on the router means that, say, a friend comes over, they have something, some internet enabled device, they're able to get online. Well, that computer is not going to fall under this. So it's only those computers on which the software is installed. If you figure out a way to do that right at the hub where the internet is getting into the house, that means anything that's using that is going to be filtered through that hub. So, of course, I mean, if you know what you're doing and you can look at stuff like the Tomato router, there's so much more than just filtering that you can do with it. And OpenDNS, you can get into quality of service control and all kinds of different things. But it is a very interesting solution, especially if you are a completely Windows-based family. I mean, yes,
and
absolutely.
if you're not real tech savvy, I mean, I could have never done it, what I've done here, without Matthew's help. And I know when he throws out stuff about DNS servers and stuff like that, some people don't even know what he's talking about. I think that at least if you are on a Windows platform, that this is an alternative. It's free.
Yeah,
download it.
And it's simple. I mean, it is. It really makes it easy.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's our download of the week. Let's move on to They Said It.
Read my lips.
I'm going to say this again.
I've never taken steroids or HGH.
I took the initiative in creating the internet.
The Macintosh, of all the machines I've ever seen, is the only one that meets that standard.
I'm not a crook.
If you know what you're doing here, slide out.
I am not a crook. I love that. Okay. A new investigation was launched, and last month the district attorney's office decided to charge Fiorina with reckless endangerment and disorderly conduct because a spokeswoman said he refused to cooperate with police. He's scheduled for trial in July. John Stossel reporting on the story of Mark Fiorina, who is being charged because he released an audio recording of an earlier arrest where he was harassed by Philadelphia police officers. Source, Fox News.
The discovery of Osama bin Laden in a military town less than 40 miles from the Pakistani capital of Islamabad indicates at a minimum a lack of commitment by the Pakistani government to aggressive cooperation with the United States. New Jersey Senator Robert Menendez, in a letter written to Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and Defense Secretary Bob Gates. Menendez also went on to question the scale of the current assistance package for Pakistan, noting that after Afghanistan, the country is the second largest recipient of U.S. assistance, including $4.7 billion in U.S. aid and reimbursements in fiscal year 2010. Source, Yahoo News.
There are now over 30 Lenovo ThinkPads certified with Ubuntu. With many of these being completed in the first half of 2011, the great work with Lenovo continues. John Bernard announcing for Canonical, the makers of Ubuntu operating system, that they are now collaborating with Lenovo to make sure that Ubuntu software and Lenovo hardware make for a pleasant user experience. Source, Softpedia.
Until you have a kernel panic.
There's very little Christ, very little Jesus in these people who are fighting Rob Bell. Eugene Peterson explaining why he endorsed Bell's new book, Love Wins, source Pathos.
It's no easy amount to raise. We absolutely considered taking it off and capping the roof, but voices within the congregation want their bell, their tower. It's symbolic. It's part of our church. Glenn Likens, one of 58 parishioners at St. Mark's Episcopal Church in Wadsworth, Ohio, commenting on the church's task of raising $30,000 if they want to see their 2,000-pound bell and bell tower replaced. They haven't been able to use it for a year. Source, Christianity today.
People want their bell.
You want that bell. You need that bell.
Come on, ring them bells.
This takes me back to the book Radical by David Platt, and this is something he really talked about. He talks a lot about elaborate church buildings, and for a church of 58 people to want to spend $30,000, they're obviously going to have to take out a loan unless they're very wealthy. 58 people, and to take out and that's so. And of course, it's easy for me to sit here and throw darts at St. Mark's Episcopal Church.
Yeah, this would be a tough call.
But
why do you say that? I mean, you're serious, aren't you?
Well, yeah, I am serious because there's a lot of heritage and history here, and this is probably an older church that at one time was the heart of a certain part of the community. And if you want to attract people to your church, you're not going to cap the thing off when it's been presented one way in the community. I mean, still $30,000 it'd go a long ways towards funding some program that would help a lot of unemployed people in the Wadsworth, Ohio.
As leaders in the church, can't we say that we've seen this before, where just sometimes your congregation or the group of people wants to invest in something that you just kind of realize this is not worth throwing that money into, and you just have kind of got to say,
well, yeah, but I'm not sure this is an unworthy expenditure. I really am conflicted about this because, first of all,
it's because you have an appreciation for history. That's one of the reasons.
Well, not just history, but first of all, if you take the bell off and the bell tower, you've got to, like they said, cap it off. That's going to require a certain amount of money, probably in the neighborhood of $5,000.
Yes,
at least.
So you're talking
5 to 10.
You're talking $25,000 now in real costs to restore this thing, and I just don't know if you want to attract people to your church, and it looks like you're shutting it down.
Here's the question: why can't they just fix the bell?
Well, it's the tower. We had a similar situation. Let me, in the interest of
okay.
Let me, in the interest of full disclosure, say that at Greenville First, our bell tower, for which we have no bell, by the way, our steeple, had some parts of wood that were so punky you could literally stick a screwdriver through the wood. It was like paper mache. It had rotted across the years, and we fixed it. We didn't just cap the roof off because it's part of. It didn't cost us $30,000 to do it. I want to say that right up front. It didn't probably cost us $1,000 to fix what we had to fix there. But what we did was we repaired that roof and that steeple, and we did it for aesthetic reasons as well as for construction reasons.
Now, here's the thing. We had a dear saint years ago pass away at Oakway and left money specifically for chimes. We do not have a bell tower, but we have chimes, and they're electronic, and we have the speakers up there. I would, if your bell tower is not in, if you're not worried about it collapsing, if that's the fear, obviously, then you're at a crossroads. You got to make a decision. I'd say put a couple of grand, leave the tower there, and just get the fake electric chimes, which I know that might be too contemporary for some people. But
I'm going to leave to the church where I attend. I'm going to leave an endowment to keep up the potbelly stove to heat the sanctuary.
Right. The thing about the electric chimes is they can be hacked. That's what's beautiful about it. So, like Southern Western University,
Staying alive,
beautiful bell tower. Yeah, you can figure out ways to get there and.
Stay alive. Stay alive.
I got to tell you, this quote that Heath read drives me nuts. Peterson's saying there's very little Christ, very little Jesus in these people who are fighting Rob Bell. I mean, really, is this what we've come to, where we can't debate things and we can't debate them passionately? Rob Bell is challenging orthodoxy. And so what
do you mean by orthodoxy? No. I mean,
No,
not everybody that listens will
He does not. He will not speak to
the standard historical beliefs of the church as taught by the Bible.
Yeah, and specifically with Rob Bell, Orthodox views of heaven and hell.
Right.
And so our criticisms here, while we think he's got some great points in this book, our criticism has been, come on, come clean. Where do you stand on these Orthodox views? And there are people that are passionate about that, been very critical. I'm just saying that their criticism is fair. And for Eugene Peterson to act as though these comments are unchristian.
Yeah.
I don't know. I cannot speak for Eugene Peterson, but I can paraphrase him. And what I would say is that his thing is not with what is being said, it's how it's being said. And I would agree with him on that, is that some of the ways that people, I mean, farewell, Rob Bell. I mean, what a jerk. I mean, let's just,
Oh, so you and Eugene Peterson are pretty much on the same page here, aren't you?
I'm not now. If you want to debate Rob Bell, yes, absolutely. That is the Christian thing to do, to question, but the manner in which you've
you're right.
You can debate Rob Bell without
being mean and nasty.
Yes, and you can do it in a Christian way. Yeah, and I see where Heath's coming from. A statement like "farewell, Rob Bell," or whatever happened like that.
And I am sorry that I called John Piper a jerk.
So, but when you think that statement was inappropriate and unchristian, farewell, Rob Bell.
I think the way it came across,
it was intended. Yes.
All right.
Right at the beginning of.
Have you read the book?
Yeah. That's not.
No. Have you read the book?
That's not where he was going.
But
Piper wasn't going. He wasn't challenging. No, I haven't read the book. From
if you read the book, Rob Bell attacks many of the things that we consider precious in the same spirit and attitude as some of the smart alecks that
I don't think Piper had read the book yet at that time either. But my
point has nothing to do with that. We're talking about the attitude in which they're carrying on the debate, and I'm saying Rob Bell, in many respects, started it with the manner in which he spoke of these things.
Then Piper continued it.
Clearly, Rob Bell he's sarcastic at times, and so
here's
my
Tony.
point.
I agree with
Eugene Peterson's not critical of Rob Bell being that way, but he's critical of anyone who responds to Rob Bell that way. Right. Come on, we're big boys and girls. It gets rough and tumble, and I'm just saying that's okay. We can have disagreements, and we can even be passionate about it.
And I totally agree. That's why I want to walk across the room and smack you in the face right now. I totally agree.
Brought to you by Smith & Wesson.
I'm not trying to take a different side of the argument, with the exception of when it becomes a personal attack on the individual rather than the issue, when you're not debating what's being talked about in the book, but instead you're
No, fair enough. Personal attack. I mean, fair enough.
Call for the question.
Well, listen, I only want to touch on one more of these because time's getting away, but this story about the guy in Philadelphia, I think Fiorino set the cops up on this one. I just have to, and they accuse him of that. Now, the cops have bad behavior, but I think Fiorino sets him up. I think the cops didn't know law. Mark did, and so he took full advantage of it. He carried his firearm on the outside where you could see it, and so that's why cops tag him. And Fiorino's, he's in the right, but he happened to have his audio recorder on before the police ever.
Oh, please. You and I are so far apart on this.
Oh, no, he did. He had the tape.
I know, but you and I are so far apart on this. He had his tape recorder on because of the track record of the Philadelphia police. Indiana's Supreme Court this last week, and I sent you the link, they came down with the stupidest decision they've ever rendered in their whole history of existence.
That's a big statement.
Be Christian. Be Christian.
I'm being Christian right now. They can get saved later if they want, but they haven't got it yet. They passed this decision that said even if a cop is breaking into your house, entering illegally, you know he's coming in illegally, he knows he's coming in illegally, you may not stop him. So if you've got a rogue cop busting in the house to kill you, or to harm your children, or to rape your wife, according to Indiana's Supreme Court, you have no right to resist him.
So much for search
and I'm going to tell you something.
Tell me.
I would re-educate them in the law if they came through my door under those.
The founding fathers just rolled over into
the law was clearly on Fiorino's side. I mean, I won't even debate that.
I'm just simply saying we're turning into this police state where unconscionable powers. Powers that were given to the people and bought at the price of our father and mother's blood across centuries. Are just
rights endowed by our Creator.
Hey, what about the issue that's going on right now about recording, videotaping police officers?
Yeah, that's some more madness.
Yes, it is. There's a lot going on about that in things that have happened where people have pulled out a cell phone, and the question is, do we not hold these people who are supposed to be keeping the peace and all that? Do we not hold them accountable?
Yeah.
Listen, in Philadelphia, and having lived there, and Aaron's from Pennsylvania. He
Western Pennsylvania. Some of folks my way don't. This Philadelphia is more.
But
not all comments are endorsed by the Techology Show.
But there is this overwhelming feeling that citizens have in Philadelphia that the cops are out to get them. If you've ever watched Parking Wars about the Philadelphia Parking and Traffic Authority, I mean, it is. There's this feeling that there's a lot of corruption, that they're out to get them, and so there's just a spirit about that city and about their law enforcement, about their elected officials, and to hear that this story has happened. I mean, if I just read this story and you don't tell me where it is, I say that's probably Philadelphia, and I would be correct. That's the culture that's there.
Well, you can check out the link. I mean, it's I mean, I think the law is on Fiorino's. It's clearly on Fiorino's side, so I'll leave it at that. Our final story of the week. So Heath sent me this one. What's going on here, Heath?
We just had a pastor who for years has been telling everybody he was in the Navy SEALs, and obviously when Navy SEAL Team 6 went in and got Osama bin Laden, a lot of questions asked and people asking, well, what would, and coming to find out he was not in the Navy SEALs at all, and I'm not sure what the follow-up was, if he is still at his church or if they have relieved him of his duties, but always tell the truth and let it be known I was not in the military.
Hey, all right. Stephen just said that pastor and church are 10 minutes from where he lives. Can he do a field report for us?
Oh my!
Stephen, take your daughter, Ella.
Yeah,
take Ella, because she's such a
Ella.
good camera girl. You did such a great job opening up our gift that we sent you. So take Ella, go out there, have her with the tripod, and see what you can get for us, and mail it in to us. We want that on the show. Okay.
All right. We continue to appreciate viewer comments and listener comments. So we have one here. It says, you guys have mentioned a couple of times the Bible, KML, KMZ.
We read this last week, didn't we?
We had it on the show notes. I didn't think we read it. Did we read it?
Yeah, we read it.
Yeah, we read it.
Never mind about that comment. Check last week's episode. Let me tell you what's coming up. Next week, we were supposed to have Dr. Robert Cranston, who's a medical doctor, and Paige Cunningham on the show. Unbeknownst to me, Dr. Cranston's wife has been battling cancer, and this week just took a really bad turn for the worse. And so, we've told Dr. Cranston, obviously, his loyalties lie with his family right now.
Right, so be praying, too, for them. We all have, as we're talking with him this week, just that we pray for them. Did he mention her name? I can't remember. Just her first name. I don't remember. But
yeah, but I'm sorry, I can't remember it right now. So our prayers go out to the Cranston family, and her death is imminent. So that family certainly needs your prayers, and he will be on the show. But he's just going to need a little time here of healing. We've got a couple of things we're going to try to work out for next week. We'll see, and of course, as always, you'll have our usual nonsense. On June the 1st, Kevin Beers will be with us to talk to us about student ministries. Church is reaching out to college students. On June the 29th, we'll have Chris Conrad here to be talking about church multiplication and church planting. He's the district superintendent of the West Michigan district of the Wesleyan Church. All righty. Steve, where can our listeners find you on the internet?
Except for weekend release, probably the county jail in Greenville. Steve Stanley at Facebook.com.
All right, Heath.
ChaseYourLine.com. And from there, they can find me everywhere on the internet.
Was that an email address? Are you working for Facebook now, Steve?
Yeah.
Steve Stanley at Facebook.com. I'm just saying. Wow, this is awesome.
Is that where they can find you too, Matthew?
No.
Okay.
Oh, but where you can find me is MatthewTG.com, at Facebook.Twitter.Microsoft.
Oh, my word.
So are you working for Twitter now?
All right, you can find me at Facebook.com/AKC64. We want to, again, thank Aaron for being with us today.
Thank you.
He can't be found on the internet. So
he's off the grid.
He's off the grid. Yeah, he
there.
doesn't pay taxes.
He's like he's the Phantom.
That's right.
I can vouch for his documents.
Okay, he's a guy. You know, he's a county official.
Yes.
So, Coney County.
He's
your county.
He could
right,
he could spend
he's a government
he could
man.
spend an hour talking about that for sure. I want to have him back just to talk about that.
He's revenuer, isn't he?
He's a government man.
All right. If you want to do further research on anything we discussed today, you can find all the links to the stories we covered. Hey, Heath, could you stop typing on that? Oh, that's Aaron. Aaron, what are you doing? Aaron's doing it on purpose, man. You can find all the links to the stories we covered at our website, thetechnologyshow.com. If you want to contact us, send your emails to thetechnologyshow@gmail.com. Matthew, we still have a Kindle.
Yeah, but it's been won. I just haven't got the voicemail downloaded and ready yet, so I'll announce it next week. But it has been won. Somebody has won the Kindle edition of Heaven is for Real, and we will alert everybody next week as to who that was.
All right. Well, listen, we would love to have your voicemail comments. You can call us at 3049-TEOLOGY. That's 304-986-5649. Leave us a message, and we may even play your comments on the air. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye.
Adios.
Sayonara.
That's how Heath rolls. That's how I roll.